Welcome back from our concurrent sessions. Thank you again to our sponsor of Session 10, Key Clean. A few final reminders. There's still time to engage on the platform and meet some of your colleagues, all 2,800 of them. There are quite a few of us here. And there is time to engage with our wonderful exhibitors. So head on over to the exhibition hall to do that. But for now, our next session it's my great pleasure to be able to introduce this very fine lady. We're very pleased to have Angela Leitch, who is the QUT Pro Vice Chancellor of Indigenous Strategy, a position she commenced in February 2019. She is a Wapabara Gwanami Enkil woman, and I hope that I'm getting these pronunciations right, Angela, both of your surname and of the words that I just read out. So please correct me when you come on. Whose country is the Keppel Islands off the coast of central Queensland, Australia. As Pro Vice Chancellor of Indigenous Strategy, she's responsible for providing leadership in developing the strategic direction of the university regarding Indigenous matters, including institutional policy, strategy and advice in relation to all aspects of Indigenous higher education at QUT. The position plays a critical role in engaging within the university, external stakeholders and Indigenous communities to establish effective and productive relationships. Angela ensures alignment of all related Indigenous initiatives and activities with the university's overall strategic direction. Angela, you've got a big responsibility there. You are here now to speak to us today about campus to country strategy. Please make Angela welcome.
Thank you, Mimi. Good morning, everyone, and I'm really pleased to talk to you about QUT's Campus to Country. It's a fabulous strategy. So Dalatali, Pro Vice Chancellor, Indigenous Strategy, QUT, Nugu, Enkul Wapabara, Nugu, Tali Baragangapa, Nugu, Turrbal, and Yagara. I am the Pro Vice Chancellor at QUT for Indigenous Strategy. I'm also a Wapabara woman from off the central coast of Queensland, and I recognise today that I'm speaking on the land of the Turrbal and Yagara people. So I'm here to talk about the campus to country, and it's a really exciting project, and it's something that a lot of Aboriginal people on our campus are really pleased to see. One of the things when I started a couple of years ago at QUT, I was here about for 2 weeks, and then I was told, "Oh, come and tell us what your first impressions of QUT were." And as an Aboriginal person, one of my first observations was that despite having one of the largest Indigenous student populations in the country, it didn't actually reflect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It didn't reflect a sense of place. And it was not kind of recognising of Aboriginal people in a way that was welcoming and engaging. It stood on the land of the Turrbal and Yagara people, and that's really important to our strategy. But the built environment mainly reflected Australia's colonial heritage. We have Old Government House on one of our campuses. So this kind of built environment is not too dissimilar to most Australian university campuses. So some people might ask, what does it mean to have a sense of place? Well, for an Aboriginal person, it means that you know whose country you're on when you're kind of walking through it. So, but we also know whose country do we pass to get there, where it sits in relation to the Aboriginal people, north, south, west, east. What knowledge do I need to have to be on this country? Are there areas that I shouldn't go? Are there areas that I should? You know, what kind of knowledge do I need to be respectful and centred on this country? So when I came here, I asked myself, if QUT can't pay respect to the Turrbal and Yagara people whose country that its campuses are on, what level of respect are they going to give my people, Wapabara people, and other Aboriginal people who are not from this country? So, and when I talk about country, so all of these things I sort of say you'll see if you read the Campus to Country strategy. So when I talk about country, I talk about waterways, seaways, and I talk about the land, I talk about the air, I talk about a particular clan, and when we talk about country, it's linked to law, language, cultural practice, identity. So this view of mine of what the campus was when I first came was the beginning of our discussions around, well, what can QUT do to be more inviting and welcoming of Aboriginal people? So I've had some fairly extensive discussions with facilities management who related this project and led this project, and we had some really good conversations around shaping the university's physical estate to reflect, respond, like embed and make visible an Aboriginal sense of place, specifically the Turrbal and Yagara sense of place. So the Turrbal and Yagara are the two people whose countries that were on here. The outcome of those discussions and consultations that followed was that we developed a campus to country strategy. So that's what the beginning of the front of the campus to country strategy looks like. The strategy, which was launched in late 2020, informs engagement and decision-making regarding QUT's built environment. So we already had a 10-year plan for what QUT would look like. This plan sits along with it, in some ways overlaps our current 10-year plan for what QUT would look like, or our current plan pre-COVID. So it informs our engagement and decision-making, including significant public realm work, new facilities and planned upgrades. Now, I've only got a very short period of time, so I wanted to play you the Campus to Country strategy kind of video in order to show you a range of information and concepts within a short period of time. Can you play the first video, please?
QUT's Campus to Country strategy outlines the importance of connecting to country and guides how QUT campuses can be a reflection of place both physically and through engagement with Indigenous Australians. QUT's location on Turrbal and Yagara country forms our unique identity, and we encourage other organisations to understand place and to build environments which are inclusive, welcoming and reflective of our shared history. Having recently won the Carl Langer Award for Urban Design at the 2021 Queensland Architecture Awards, QUT is sharing our strategy with others so that we all can embed people in country. QUT aspires to be a university of its place, embedded in country and curated by and for its community. To implement this vision, we've asked ourselves, what if we grounded people in country, shared the knowledge embedded in place, and supported Indigenous Australian culture? What if we created a responsive physical environment, expanded community integration, and shared campus engagement? What if we developed a strategy to deliver these outcomes? We could foster a deeper understanding of the meaning of country, our exploration of people and place which shape our future, and add depth to our ever-evolving and renewing campuses. To do this, we look to tracks once used to journey through country, as well as settlement patterns of Aboriginal camps that showed well-defined living, ceremonial, burial and public spaces. We recognise that our campuses are located on Turrbal and Yagara country, a land rich with Aboriginal history and embedded culture, the cues for rethinking our physical environments. We look to country as the foundation layer, one of the many elements considered in planning our future campuses. We develop frameworks focused on delivering future facilities in our campus public realm. These create a track through each campus and will change how we engage with country. We will use new buildings to invite people to experience important views, draw nature in, and engage with the outdoors. We will use public spaces to encourage activation, respond to cultural needs, and support daily life. We will enhance connections to provide new ways of moving through and experiencing each campus. We will use public art to evoke the senses and create a deeper connection with place, identity, and culture. QUT has decided the time is now to embed place, genuine engagement, and shared design in the delivery of our campuses.
Great. So as you can see, the strategy was designed to create and ensure that campuses and all people in our campuses experience a deeper connection to and appreciation to country. So we wanted the non-Indigenous people that come to our campus to also have a feeling of place, because we think it's really important for all people to share in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. And we want our students, no matter where they come from, to understand this is a unique place and it's a unique feeling that you won't feel anywhere else. So what does all this mean for QUT's facilities? So it means that we need to be conscious of and be connected to the layered stories embedded in place. We have to really adopt a back to basics approach by responding to the local context and acknowledge and learn from the way the native landscape was historically used and managed, showcasing and highlighting different places. And we need to move beyond a Western lens and interpretation of place to create a genuine campus environment. While we're doing this, though, we need to be aware of the multi-layered symbolic nature and context in which projects sit on our campuses. And you would have seen the spatial prompts in the video. Now, these prompts were developed by Indigenous Australian Kevin O'Brien, who's a principal architect at BVN. So that's an architecture firm. So Kevin outlines that looking to country is the foundation layer to be considered when planning future campus development. Once we understand relationship with country and how we embed or make visible Aboriginal voices in our differing projects, we can then move on to the colonial layer, the multicultural layer, the campus as a project, and a technological layer. So how do universities start with a foundation layer? Well, at QUT, we share and look to campus to country strategy, context and objectives, the spatial frameworks, those tracks that you saw, the different sites of significance, and you can see that there's a Bora ring very close to one of our campuses. Our campus, what the topology kind of looked like, so what kind of, what was the soil, what were the plants like, how was the land shaped. We looked at what the campus palette was, and when we start to build or refurbish, we think about what that looks like, and each campus has a campus palette. So we do that. We also changed our procurement process to include a requirement to understand or employ someone with an understanding in the Indigenous space. Indigenous involvement in the selection process was implemented, clear expectations of consultation processes, and the Indigenous involvement throughout the project. And these are not just Indigenous projects, this is for all projects that are taking place at QUT. So I'm going to show you a look at the Oodgeroo Student Support Unit on our Calvin Grove campus that was refurbished during our campus to country. And this will get played, but I'll talk through it. So if you can play that video. So here the palette reflects the original campus palette that was on that campus. It has a lot of see-through spaces which connects it to the landscape outside because it was on a hill. It was used as a kind of a lookout space, so people needed to be able to look out from that space. The art that was within a unit demonstrates connection to concept of country, people and place. It really fosters an ability to occupy indoor and outdoor transitional spaces and the need for flexible communal space for the community, and that's a fire pit there that we can use for ceremony. It does all of this while ensuring that the needs of university students are met, because that does need to be primary. And the culturally sensitive design is a really fit for purpose so that the students The space ensures the students and the wider community feel accepted, comfortable and welcome. So while this is an Indigenous specific place, we're incorporating this into a lot of other buildings and spaces on campus, as I said before. And one of the tips I think that I will give people, if you're looking to develop or implement a similar strategy like campus to country, you really have to start with the Aboriginal protocols by remembering whose country that you're on. And this is different for different universities. In QUT's case, our campuses must reflect the Turrbal and Yagara people. Their views are primary. Secondly, we listen to the views of the Aboriginal country surrounding it and those Aboriginal people. This primacy on Turrbal and Yagara really assists when it comes to consulting, choice of insertions, incisions, choice of what the building design could look like, what's going to influence that building design, and public art. So just a couple of quick examples. In the development phase of the strategy, which did take about a year, QUT Facilities, who are the project lead, worked with the traditional owners. Our QUT's elder in residence, who is both Turrbal and Yagara, Kevin O'Brien, an Indigenous architect, Simone Wise, the urban planning consultant, my office, which is the office of the PVC, and we also looked at key historical documents and undertook further research. So it was a lot of work to come up with what we did. But consultation with the community was deliberately limited to Turrbal and Yagara people. This is their country. This is their narrative. And if we got that right, the Aboriginal protocol would be correct for other Aboriginal people entering this country, because they would see protocol in place and know that this is a respectful campus to be on, a respectful place to be. Some further practical examples are processes that we've implemented, such as Turrbal and Yagara artists are the only artists who can do public art here that relate to Welcome to Country. Other artwork, depending on its requirements, we will always seek a Turrbal or Yagara artist. If one is not available or doesn't have the particular skills that we want, we move to an artist who has lived on this country, an Aboriginal artist who lived in this country for a substantial period of time. Then someone who's worked on this country, an Aboriginal person who's worked on this country, and then Aboriginal people from surrounding countries who would have traded in and out of this country. And then lastly, we open it up for Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander artists in general. This kind of gives us a protocol or a session kind of process to move through. So the elder in residence is part of the selection of artists and artwork. I'm going to quickly. In the future, QUT will develop a second iteration of the strategy where we'll refine the document based on our project learnings and ongoing monitoring and evaluation. It will outline thematic principles and provide detailed strategies with design and outcomes. So we're starting to look at that now. Since the Campus to Country strategy development, QUT has designed and refurbished the Oodgeroo unit at Kelvin Grove campus, commissioned a Yagara artist to do a Welcome to Country art piece, which will be completed by the end of the year. We're in the final stages of design for a Gardens Point Oodgeroo student unit, the Karumba Institute, the School of Accounting refurbishment. And now when I walk around the campus, it still mainly reflects the colonial layer, but I know that the Aboriginal layer is slowly being revealed, and that in time, our physical campus will respect and reflect the welcoming environment for all people who attend this country. Warraban Murabin Gabada, Karayandinyara, Daragan, thank you. And I'll just put up a quick slide to show you these are the collaborators that are involved with the Campus to Country, and there's the contact for an email should you wish to speak to anyone about it. I think that leaves me like 2 or 3 minutes for questions.
Thank you. We do have 2 or 3 minutes for questions, and I'll just quickly say an Aboriginal elder once told me here in Melbourne, Uncle Jack said to me, he said he was planting with his father when he was a little boy, and he said to his dad, "Why, Dad, are you still carrying out the Aboriginal traditions? Why are you planting this way? Why do you keep teaching me the culture? Nobody's interested in it." And his father put his hand on Jack's shoulder and he said, "One day, son, the world is going to be asking you how we live. And that just, you know, what you're doing with the campus is exactly epitomising that whole, you know, that whole meaningful interaction that Uncle Jack had with his father, in that now the world is looking to Indigenous culture to show the way to the future. So I'll jump into some questions. Thank you for that amazing introduction to what you're doing on your campus, and it's so powerful. I'm actually lost for words. It's wonderful. Heather Kemba has a question. Now that you have the strategy, are you seeing the change in the way that projects are being delivered already? I mean, you showed us some slides of that.
Yeah, we are. And like there's projects already. And then like the School of Accounting, like this is what we're doing in the School of Accounting. This is the art. This is the colours that'll go in there. And, you know, once I think people are really embracing it, because a lot of the kind of principles behind it are things that everybody likes. You know, everyone likes to engage with the outside, the world of nature, bring nature kind of in. The colours, once we change the things, this was interesting with students, once we changed the colours in the Indigenous unit, the students felt more peaceful. They said, I feel really peaceful being in this space. And non-Indigenous people are saying, I feel peaceful in this space. So it allows us to put it into other people's areas, and people are coming to us and asking us, can we do it in their area? But we need to work our way through.
Yeah, and creating this built environment that is culturally sympathetic benefits everyone, either on a conscious or unconscious level. I mean, those open spaces, those meeting circles that enable, you know, a fire pit and cultural traditions to take place and ceremonies is actually, you know, fantastic for the Aboriginal community, but it's fantastic for everybody on campus. Another question from Steve is, was the artwork around the campus created by Indigenous people or just using their input? That's an interesting question, because you talked about the colours and we saw some of that engraved artwork in the classrooms.
And not all of it is. So we go through a process and we say, okay, this is kind of, because we work very closely with the elder. He's here and he's Turrbal and Yagara. So we say, okay, Uncle Chegg, this is the artwork that we kind of want in this space. And so we go out and look for a Yagara and Turrbal person. Oh, and that particular artwork that's up there, the wooden one, his mob, that young fella who did that, his mob weren't from here, but his grandmother had lived here, his mother had lived here, he had lived here, so he had been raised in this country. And Uncle Chegg there was fine with that, because we didn't have a Yagara or a Turrbal person who could do that type of artwork.
That's so amazing. I have to jump in there, because we do have to wind it up. I mean, it's something that we could talk about for hours. It's really inspiring what you're doing, and it's fantastic that you've put up those numbers and those links for other universities and campuses to maybe, you know, take something away from what you're doing and be inspired with their own built environment. So I thank you so much, Angela Leitch. Thank you for joining us. And I bid you all the very best, as I say farewell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mimi. Bye.
Thank you, Angela. Bye. Now it's time to go to the next session. I'm going to hand over the next session to TEFNA board member Kathleen Packer, who will chair the discussion featuring our major sponsor, Turner and Townsend.